Hello, there we are. We are back here in the presentation mode. I hope you made the most of the networking we have going on here in Remo. If you haven't tried it out, just double click a table and you can talk to other people who are in the room. But for now, we're in the presentation and I'm absolutely delighted to introduce Elena today, who's going to talk about the relationship between well-being and creativity. If you have any questions for Elena, please just pop them in the Q&A tab and we can discuss them afterwards. We have a section for Q&A, and then I think Elena is open to do some networking afterwards as well. So we're going to be back on the floor on the tables, so you can jump on the same table as Elena and have a little chat with her if you have any more questions. But for now, I'm going to hand it over to Elena. The stage is yours. Go for it.
Thanks, Kim. Okay, so I just like to say I've seen most of the people in the room and I know that most of you know me. So my first slide is who am I? I don't really feel like I need to go over that too much, but just to recap in case someone new has joined, I'm Elle. I am a creative producer at 21st. We are a creative agency based in London and New York. I have been in the events industry for about 8 years, and aside from my day job, I also work on an initiative in the events industry to help newcomers to events kind of find their place. And I've worked with EventWell for a few years now with that initiative, helping people to understand kind of what is involved in the events industry and the unpredictable stresses that can come with that. But yeah, as I said, I feel like most people know me, so I don't really need to dwell on that. So kind of the first thing that I wanted to start with is the fact that...
Hi, Elle. Sorry
yeah?
to interrupt you, but the mic for some reason isn't good. There isn't a good quality on the mic right now. There's some feedback. Can you just like maybe turn it off and back on and see if that helps?
Yes. Is that better?
Yeah, sounds better now. I think it might be because of the presentation. So let's go back into the presentation mode and see what it does.
What about now?
Yeah, sounds good now.
Okay, cool. So obviously this presentation is touching on the relationship between creativity and well-being, but the first kind of thing I wanted to touch upon was something that I hear a lot sometimes, especially when talking to younger people coming up into the industry, is that they think that creativity is not really part of their day job, and they think that unless you're producing something and exceptionally skilled at building sets or doing graphic design, that creativity maybe doesn't fall into your job. But creativity, as we know, is involved in kind of every aspect of life, every kind of job that you could have. And especially in the events industry, everyone in the events chain has to flex to different budgets or to work with demanding clients and deliver things on very changing timescales. And so everyone in the events industry actually has creativity weaved into their job, even if they don't know it. And I think today more than ever, it's especially important to approach things with a creative mindset. And again, I know that kind of we all know that creativity and well-being are interlinked. Before 2020, there were so many studies on it. I think we all understand that the relationship exists. But I wanted to talk about creativity and well-being as it stands right now in like the midst of the pandemic. And there's been some great research studies done on the fact that during the pandemic, people have turned more to creative outlets and using creative therapies more so than they did ever before. And I read a really interesting article a few weeks ago on something called ambiguous loss. And I had never really understood what it was before. And so I'm sure probably most of you have. So apologies for re-explaining, but ambiguous loss, for those of you that don't know, is when something happens, but there's no closure. And so you're feeling stressed about it, you're feeling worried, or you're mourning the loss of something, for example, a missing person, but you don't have the answer as to why they're missing. And so something just doesn't feel right. You can't really settle on what the feeling that you should be experiencing is. And it kind of clicked because I feel like that's what's happening in the events industry. We've completely lost what our industry used to be like, but it's extremely stressful for us because we don't know when it's coming back. It's coming back kind of, but in ways in which we're not used to. And the article had this quote, which really resonated with me, and I feel like it will with a lot of events professionals, is the fact that we are so used to solving problems and being in a routine and making things fixed and making everything better, that the fact we can't do that at the moment is even more stressful. So I wanted to share 5 tips that I've kind of learned or implemented over the last 6 to 8 months to kind of help me with my well-being and my approach to work and how I approach projects and how they kind of link together. So first of all, I wanted to talk about maintaining a creativity kind of arsenal. And I guess one thing to note is that everybody already has this without realizing. So it's like your favorite documentaries on Netflix, or your favorite Spotify playlist, or like your favorite recipes that you go to over and over again. Things that kind of inspire you to do more or feel more without you even realizing. And I think it's really important over the course of lockdown, even when you're on furlough or you're only working a few days a week, or the projects that you're working on are not necessarily creative. I think it's really important to keep maintaining that and keep going back and checking on it and really understanding why you like the things that you like, because it might help you to focus on things in a completely different way. And I think the same can be for your mental and physical well-being. As a really small and really silly example, but something that I find really fits into this, is at the beginning of lockdown, I started skipping because my gym had closed, and I can run, but I feel like Phoebe in the episode of Friends when she runs. So I don't really like it that much. And so I was like, okay, cool, I can skip and it will keep me fit. And I did it for a few months just thinking it was fun and not really understanding why I liked it so much. And after a few months, I kind of noticed if I didn't skip or if I missed a few days, like I would feel a little bit stressed, or I'd feel a little bit off. And I realized the time that I had spent skipping, like those 20-25 minutes, I'm not thinking about anything else. I am just focusing on skipping and not like falling over and breaking my leg. And so it gave like my mind a chance to refresh and reset for the day. And so I think when you have this bank of things that you like to do, or you like to watch, or you like to read, if you understand why you like to do it, you can then approach the challenges that we all have during lockdown in a completely different way. So now I know if I feel stressed, I can just skip for a little while. And I mean, my stresses might not go away, but I can feel a little bit better about it. The second is to think outside of your bubble. And obviously at the moment we're being told in various tiers, but we're being told to stay inside of our little bubbles, and it can be so easy to then just stay with your tribe and stay with what feels comfortable and not look outside of that. But in the same way that creative ideas come out of the most random places and the random ideas, and in your creativity arsenal, I'm sure every event professional has like random pictures of crap on their phone that they've seen out that they think will inspire them one day to do something at their event. It's the same with, you can find inspiration for how to manage your mental health and your well-being from different areas as well. Like talking to people at work you might not have spoken to before, or like listening to podcasts that you probably didn't think were for you before, and you didn't want to waste time because we were so busy. But now we have that little bit of extra time. I think if you look outside of where you normally would, you can find some great nuggets of like advice and information. And as I said, now we have a little bit more time. You don't really have anything to lose by trying something new. Number 3 is to write on the blank page. I think we've all had the kind of stress when a client gives us a brief and it's like so prescriptive, we feel like we can't even showcase what we can do because they're basically telling us what to deliver. But then on the other side of that, we've had it where the brief is so wide open, it can feel really daunting to start. And it's like, there's so many different options that I can go in. There's also so many different ways that I could be wrong, or that, you know, the client might completely hate it. And I know that this is also in play in kind of everyday life. The fact of having so many choices and so many different ways to manage our well-being and to look after our physical and mental health, it can be overwhelming to even know where to start. Like, for example, in lockdown, if you wanted to do an Instagram live workout, there was probably like 12,000 people and Joe Wicks that you could choose from. And it's the fact of having so much choice is sometimes completely overwhelming, and it's safer to just do nothing. But that's why I put this quote in here, because I often think of it when I'm overthinking, but if you do nothing, then nothing at all is going to happen. And it's better to start and to try something and to figure out what did and didn't work for you, rather than to just do nothing at all. So the same way that you would approach a project and just get the ideas down, I think it's important to just, if you're thinking of, maybe I should try yoga, or maybe I should try meditation, if you just try it, and you never know what's going to happen. The fourth one is to let yourself be slow. I really struggle with this, because I am an impatient person with myself. And also I think the very nature of events, we go so fast all the time. We finish one event and we don't even take a minute to understand the amazing work we've delivered before we push on to something else. And I think if we think of like last year, if you think of the flights that you took, or the pictures that you got out, or the networking events that you went to, and then compare it to what we've done this year, it feels kind of flat, and that you're not living up to what you know you can actually do. And I think this is especially stressful for event professionals right now, because other industries are starting work again, and we are not in the same way. And it can be extremely frustrating. But then I started to think of it like, when we put on these events and when we travel to these fam trips, or we get the pitch out of the door, it takes so much time to get to that finished article. Like, we go through reviews and concepting and even more reviews and cross-checking with the client. And then I started to realize, like, if I wanted to be the best version of myself, I have to give myself the time to get there. And sometimes it's okay to be slow, or to not feel like at peak L all the time, because to get to that, I need to give myself some rest. And that is something I've really struggled with, because I normally just go 100 miles an hour. But I think it's really important to treat it like how the way you would treat a project. Or someone once said to me, like, if a friend came to you with the same problem, would you be like giving them the same advice you're giving yourself? So just to be like gentler and take the time with yourself. And my final tip is to trust in big magic. First of all, I want to say shout out to the book Big Magic, which I would 100% recommend for people to read if you're interested in looking at life in a different way, or just approaching problems with a slightly different mindset. And that's kind of where I got the idea for this. And second is that I know that like big magic sounds a bit fluffy, but the concept is, the big magic is everything that's happening that's outside of your control. And again, like, event professionals and being in control goes hand in hand. Like, we are all control freaks. And this year has been a nightmare because none of us can do anything about it. But I think understanding that throughout history, like, massive periods of turmoil and change have brought about some of the best pieces of like creative work, like music and art. And I think it's also important to remember that can also apply to ourselves. And we can't do anything about the pandemic. People can't do anything about the fact that, you know, we can't host in-person events, or that you've been put on furlough, or whatever your situation is or has been this year. It's outside of our control. And just to trust that, even though it doesn't make sense now, like, you can't control it. So just try to let it go. And again, as I'm saying this, I'm laughing because I'm literally the worst person at that. But try to just understand that it's going to be okay in the end. And I know it sounds really lame, but when everything is outside of our control, there is nothing else that we can do. And I've reached the end of my presentation, Kim. Also conscious that I've probably spoken like at 500 miles an hour, but that was it. Are you still there? Am I still here? Is anyone still here? Okay.
Yeah, sorry.
I was like, did I just like, everyone's gone? Okay, cool.
No, I think I'm having a slow internet connection, so my sound didn't come up, but we are still here. Thank you so much for the presentation. I think it was so great that you showcased what you're doing, how you found skipping, how that helps you. You know, we all need to find something that we just take our mind off everything and just refuel and restart. I don't have any questions in the Q&A, so people probably have been absolutely fine with what you've been presenting. I think they like everything. Let me just see. I think there's just questions popping up in the chat. People saying it has been great. They liked it. And they say you didn't speak too fast. You've been all great. So maybe there are more an audience who wants to have a conversation with you. So maybe we'll just go back to the tables now, so everyone can do some table networking with you if they would like to. So we're just going to come off the presentation, go back to the table. And if you want to talk to Elena about anything, ask her a question, or just share a story, just double tap on the table she's on, and you can have a little quick conversation with her. Yeah, perfect. Thank you so much. I think we all enjoyed that. And I'm going to send us back to the floor. Thank you so much, Elle.
Okay.